Today, I bring you a piece of good news and bad news all wrapped into one. And here it is. The project you are currently working on is not the true project.
Welcome to Just One Pivot, where a tiny shift in perspective can change everything. Whether you're feeling stuck or looking to accelerate your momentum, Just One Pivot brings a spark to jumpstart your next best move. Join Dr. Maria Keckler as she dives into inspiring stories, thought-provoking questions, and fascinating science that will help you pivot towards a life and work you love. Let's get started.
This past week, I was in Florida speaking at Renew 2024, an immersive wellness and leadership experience for women. I was also an eager student. I was soaking up every morsel of wisdom from the other speakers. And this experience reinforced what I've been telling my mentees for years, that the project you're currently working on is not the real project. The true project is, drumroll please, you. Let me say that again. The project you're currently working on is not the real project. The true project is you. That's the big idea for this week. And if you can internalize and reflect on it, everything can change for you in an instant. Here it is again. The project you're currently working on is not the real project. The true project is you. Simply put, the book, the thesis, the dissertation you're writing, the business or the organization you're building, the team you're leading, the position you're pursuing, the movement or campaign you're mobilizing, these all may look and feel like projects, but in reality, they're mere vehicles for growth. These so-called projects are also carrots that entice you to enter into a season of growth. And while you are tackling this so-called project, you get to develop the you that can be, the you that you can always want it to be, and the you that is dying to emerge. This more fully developed you can then have the opportunity to be truly congruent with the core values you claim to espouse. To add another metaphor yet to the mix, the project you're working on is also a magnifying glass that reveals what you otherwise would not be able or wish to see about yourself. The fears, the imposter syndrome, the cracks in character. Here's the deal. The projects that we undertake provide an opportunity to be congruent with our highest values, but only if we are aware that the product of the project is not the success of the project itself, but the person you can become in the process. One particular example, for years I wanted to write a book. Over the length of a decade, I had false starts. I started, I stopped, I started, I stopped. And when the resistance I referenced in episode 2 showed up, I would find other worthy projects to take my time and attention. I went back to school, got a few more credentials, degrees, and certifications. I started a couple of businesses. Each of these additional projects were worthy, of course, but in many ways they were also distractions, intentional distractions and excuses as of why I could not write the book. I didn't have time to write the book. It was not the right time, not the right season to write the book. And yet the book would not go away. Then after a decade of avoiding the book writing project, I could not take it anymore because, as you probably already know, when a project that is meant to grow us shows up at our door, it will not leave us alone. So I started writing the book again, and I determined that I would finish the book or die trying. The resistance showed up again, but I was not going to quit. Fear I had never known before showed up with such force that I would go into anxiety attacks. My inner critic fueled the fire, of course. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. You shouldn't do this. You have no credibility to do this. Everyone will know that you are a fraud, that you really are not as good a writer as others think you are. So by this point, I began to find a way out again But I didn't want it to look like I was actually quitting. I determined that instead of a real book or the book that I knew I had to write, I would write a different type of book. I would write a book of 52 easy tips on how to be a good communicator, tell better stories, etc. So I embarked on the writing project. I wrote about 70 pages, and I got to this point that I could no longer move forward. I was stuck. I was now truly in full imposter mode because I knew I was compromising the process and ultimately the product I knew I was supposed to produce. Here I was back on square one. I scrapped the 70 pages and started over. I began to write about the power of story, about how it can change our lives, how it can connect us to other people, give us the empathy we need, all the good stuff that I wanted to write about. And then around page 75, I could no longer write. I was stuck again. And I had to go back to the drawing board, walk through the fog of my mind and my soul and my fear, and see what was going on. And it finally hit me. I was not congruent with one of my core values as a writer and as a teacher. For a decade, I had been teaching my students, my mentees, and even my coaching clients the mantra that I learned in graduate school. Show, don't tell. Show, don't tell is the mantra that has served me well, not only in writing, but also in life. And this new version of the book was me telling readers how to use story, how to communicate with story. Then it hit me. There are literally dozens of incredible books that already do that brilliantly. Nancy Duarte's books on story are some of the very best on my bookshelf. So if I was going to be true to this value and write the book that I was meant to write, I would have to not merely talk about story, but actually illustrate the power of the concept through the form of story. In short, I would have to find a way to write a parable with fictional characters that represented the clients I work with in similar situations, challenges, and circumstances. It was petrifying to even think or consider that I could write such a book. But I could no longer deny that this was the book I was supposed to write, that this was the assignment for me. So I went ahead, I scrapped the next set of 70-ish pages and determined to start from scratch again. I would write the story and would give it my all, or I would die trying. So I called my friend, Shelley Beach. Shelley is an award-winning author, and I asked her to embark on this journey with me, asked her to be my coach, I asked her to be my editor, and I embarked on a journey that petrified me, paralyzed me, and ultimately transformed me into a more courageous, more congruent, and more creative writer and version of myself. So choosing the difficult path of this project, the one that was congruent with my values, was my pivot. Ultimately, it took me 18 months to write the book. I spent a lot of nights crying, a lot of nights on my knees praying that if there was a writing angel, that God would deploy it on my behalf. And ultimately, I finished the book. It was born in 2015. It is called Bridge Builders: How Superb Communicators Get What They Want in Business and in Life. It tells the story of Daniel Reed, a character that, although fictional in the book, represents the dozens of executive leaders that I have coached over 2 decades. And we get to walk on his journey with him. This book eventually became the Bridge Builder Way, a leadership development program that has been now adopted by over a dozen companies and organizations around the world. I have been able to travel all over the country and the world talking about the power of the Bridge Builder Way. And let me tell you, this could not have happened had I settled for the easy project, for the easy path. Now, a project doesn't have to be a writing project. Take Karen Hines, for instance. She is the CEO of Workplace Success Group and founder of the Renew Experience. Karen wanted to be in the best shape of her life by the time she turned 50. And as an added motivation, she decided to take on a big, hairy, audacious goal, which was to enter a bikini fitness competition. How hard could it be? This woman is one of the most motivated, driven, and excellent leaders that I have ever met. This was a done deal, right? Or so she thought. This example is interesting because Karen's project was actually her own physical transformation. So yes, she was the project, but there is more. What she would find out in the process of working with her coach, Jeff, was that en route to achieving this goal, she would have to confront inner demons that she didn't even know existed. She would be the first one to tell you, and in fact, she told an audience of about 100 women that the competition and the lean body and even the medal she won were the cherry on top. In fact, in the process of working on her own physical appearance, she found her neglected soul because she had masked this part of herself, thinking that it was required in order to build a career and a successful company. This is what she shared as she told her story. Building a successful career should not require you to leave your soul at the door. This is what she found. Now, in the next episode, I want to share some additional lessons from the Renew Experience and from some of the amazing speakers and colleagues that I am privileged to know. But for now, I really want to pause here because I want you to be thinking about your own pivot. There's some fascinating science in the field of positive psychology that has shown that personal growth and development are closely linked to engaging in challenging and meaningful activities or projects. For example, one study published in the Journal of Happiness Studies developed the personal growth and development scale to measure positive changes in well-being attributed to context-specific experiences such as educational and work projects. Now, I will reference these studies in the companion newsletter. But what is exciting to me is to see evidence suggesting that the projects we undertake, whether they are academic, professional, or personal, they serve as catalysts for our own growth and development. By engaging deeply with these projects, we actually not only achieve our goals, our external goals, but also enhance our internal well-being. So as I close this particular episode, I want to remind you that every great pivot starts with a question. And so the question I have for you this week is, what am I really getting from this project? Maybe you are, in fact, writing a book. Maybe you are writing your doctoral dissertation or your master's thesis. Maybe you are working on your relationship. Maybe you are parenting a child or navigating loss. Whatever your project is, ask yourself, what am I really getting from tackling this? If you are not subscribed, I invite you to join the conversation at justonepivot.com. I am so excited to see what you will learn, and we'll talk soon.